Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. Look, if you're tuning into this, you probably know that bone-deep exhaustion of just fighting your own mind every single night to get some rest. It's incredibly frustrating, right? Sleep is supposed to be this completely natural thing, but suddenly it feels like this nightly battle you're just doomed to lose. Well, we've got some good news. Today, we're diving into 21 science-backed habits that are literally designed to retrain your brain for natural sleep. We're going to focus on things like managing sleep effort, the classical conditioning of your bed, optimizing your light exposure, building up sleep pressure, and using real physiological signals like temperature and breathing. Basically, we're breaking down the exact conditions your mind and body need to finally stop fighting and just start resting. So let me ask you a question. Can you fall asleep within minutes without your brain completely getting in the way? Now, if your answer is an easy yes, well, this explainer honestly might not be for you. But if you feel trapped in this endless cycle of trying to force sleep, lying awake, evaluating every agonizing passing minute, then you are in exactly the right place. We're going to unpack exactly why your brain keeps getting in its own way, and more importantly, how you can step aside so sleep can just take over.
All right, section 1, the paradox of sleep effort. Let's get right into it. So what exactly is sleep effort? Well, picture this. You glance at the clock and think, okay, I absolutely need to be asleep in 15 minutes. 5 minutes later, you're still wide awake. At that exact moment, your brain has stopped preparing for sleep. Instead, it's grading your performance. And here's the kicker. The harder you try to sleep, the more alert your brain actually becomes, because it's constantly checking in to see if you're asleep yet. It's literally like trying to force yourself to laugh on command. The sheer effort of trying is exactly what's getting in the way.
So, how do we actually fix this? You've got to replace the goal. Don't aim to fall asleep. Instead, aim to just rest comfortably. Tell yourself something like, look, I'm simply giving my body a chance to rest right now. Because here's the truth. Sleep is something your brain does completely on autopilot once the conditions are right. You don't control sleep. You just remove the roadblocks that prevent it. Making that tiny mental shift from, I need to fall asleep, to, I'm just going to rest comfortably, it almost instantly drops that performance anxiety. Moving on to section 2, day cues, light and pressure. Okay, this might sound wild, but the quality of tonight's sleep actually begins tomorrow morning. For a truly sleep-optimized day, you want to nail the morning cue, getting 10 to 20 minutes of real sunlight. Your brain desperately needs to know when the day officially starts so it can lock in that circadian rhythm. Then, as we move into the afternoon, look, if you really must take a nap, keep it under 20 minutes, tops. And finally, when evening rolls around, dim those lights. Your eyes are beaming information straight to your body clock. Bright light screams at your brain to stay alert, but dim light gives it the signal that, hey, we're winding down now. A great rule of thumb, change the light before you change the time. Which brings us to this absolutely crucial biological concept known as sleep pressure. I want you to think of sleep pressure exactly like hunger. The longer you stay awake, the stronger that biological drive to sleep becomes. So if you crash for a 2-hour afternoon nap, you are basically borrowing sleep from the night. It's exactly like eating a massive heavy meal right before dinner. By the time bedtime actually rolls around, your brain just isn't hungry for sleep anymore. So keep those afternoon naps super short to make sure you're building up enough sleep pressure to actually crash out easily when it's time for bed. Now, I know we all do this, trying to make up for a terrible week of sleep by sleeping in on Saturday. But doing that actually creates what scientists call social jet lag. Your internal clock just gets totally thrown out of whack. If you drastically shift your wake-up time on the weekends, you're essentially forcing your body to change time zones every single week. Crazy, right? To stop stretching one bad night of sleep into an entire week of grogginess, try keeping your weekend wake-up time within about an hour of your normal weekday schedule. A little bit of consistency goes way further than aiming for perfect consistency.
All right, section 3, physiological signals for rest.
So your brain doesn't just have a master on-off switch. It really needs transitions. Think about a pilot landing a plane, right? They don't just drop straight out of the sky from cruising altitude directly onto the runway. They descend gradually. Your brain needs that exact same thing, a 30-minute landing strip before bed. The actual activities you do don't matter nearly as much as just doing them consistently. Maybe it's dimming the lights, doing some light stretching, or reading a few pages of a book. Whatever it is, that consistent routine becomes a hardwired biological signal that sleep is approaching. Let's actually try one of these physiological signals together right now. The magic number for this is 6. See, when you're stressed out, your breathing gets really fast and shallow. But the cool thing is, breathing works both ways. You can actually signal safety to your nervous system simply by making your exhale longer than your inhale. So try breathing in gently for about 4 seconds. and then breathe out nice and slow for 6 seconds. Doing that for literally just a few minutes gently kicks your parasympathetic nervous system into gear, completely taking your foot off the brain's accelerator. Another quiet little signal your brain is constantly looking for is temperature. Get this, a slight drop in your core body temperature actually helps trigger the release of melatonin. So the goal here is to literally help your body lose some heat. You can drop the thermostat a bit, or even just stick one foot out from under the covers, because your hands and feet are basically radiators that release heat. Another great trick, take a warm shower about an hour before bed. Paradoxically, the warm water draws blood to the surface of your skin, which actually cools down your core temperature afterward. It makes the whole process of falling asleep feel way less like a wrestling match. Okay, moving to section 4, rebuilding your bed's association. At its core, your brain is just this massive prediction machine, constantly making associations through classical conditioning. Think about it. If you're scrolling social media, firing off emails, or just lying there intensely worrying in bed, your brain slowly starts pairing your mattress with being mentally active and alert instead of being sleepy. Over time, the bed itself literally becomes a cue to wake up. That means every single night you spend an hour lying there totally frustrated, you are inadvertently practicing being awake in bed. To break that awful habit, we lean on a cornerstone protocol from cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. It goes like this. If you've been awake in bed for roughly 20 minutes, and hey, don't look at the clock, just kind of guess, you need to physically get out of bed. Go sit somewhere in very dim light. Do something super boring and calming, like a simple crossword puzzle or folding some laundry. And then, and this is absolutely the most crucial part, return to bed only when you genuinely feel sleepy again. You have to hammer home one very clear message to your brain. The bed equals sleeping, period, not struggling. Now, while you're working on rebuilding that association, you've got to avoid some classic nighttime traps. Number 1 is clock monitoring. Waking up at 2 a.m. and doing the math on how few hours you have left, yeah, that just turns the rest of the night into a stressful countdown timer. Second, you have to stop predicting tomorrow's disaster. Lying there thinking, well, tomorrow is completely ruined, skyrockets your stress levels. And finally, skip the emotionally intense media right before bed. Seriously, put away the true crime documentaries or those heated political debates. If you watch that stuff, your brain is just going to keep rehearsing all that conflict and excitement right when it's supposed to be shutting down.
And that brings us to section 5, trusting the natural process.
You know how when the room finally gets quiet at night, your brain suddenly decides it's the perfect time to solve all your unfinished problems? Yeah, bedtime is literally the worst place to do this. So try this instead. Give your worries a scheduled appointment. Block out 10 minutes earlier in the evening as official worry time. Jot down every single concern on your mind, and right next to it, write the next action step, or just simply write, "Nothing I can do about this tonight." It is exactly like closing out dozens of open browser tabs before your computer overheats and crashes. Your brain sees that the thoughts are safely stored away, so it finally stops rehearsing them on loop.
Also, a lot of times your mind races at night just because you're uncertain about how to tackle the next day. You can actually short-circuit this by writing down tomorrow's very first specific task on a sticky note. I'm not talking about a massive, overwhelming to-do list, just a clear, easy starting point. Something like, open the quarterly report and finish page 1. This surprisingly simple little act gives your brain a real sense of closure. It's essentially like mentally setting down this super heavy backpack of uncertainty right before you crawl into bed. So, the real crucial takeaway here is making a fundamental shift in your mindset. Most of us judge our night by asking, did I fall asleep quickly? But you guys, sleep is not an exam you have to pass. It's a biological rhythm. So instead, start asking yourself, did I help my brain sleep tonight? Every single time you dim those lights, every time you intentionally slow down your breathing, every time you actually get out of bed instead of just tossing and turning for hours, you are consistently providing the right environmental signals. You're slowly teaching your brain that the night is safe, predictable, and meant for rest. And that leads perfectly into our final thought for the explainer. Don't try to force sleep, train the conditions that allow it to happen naturally. Listen, you don't need to be perfect at this, and you definitely don't need to try and implement all 21 of these habits all at once tonight. Just focus on providing the right signals, and your brain is going to remember how to do the rest. So I want to leave you with this one question to think about tonight. Out of all these science-backed habits we covered, which single, tiny one are you going to choose to practice this evening to start getting the rest you actually deserve?